You're refusing to do your part, Ben. That's the word I'm getting. No team spirit. That was Rick, the new COO, leaning against the window of his corner office, tie loosened, face confident in the way only a man who's never worked a night on the floor could be. The sunlight behind him made the whole thing look like a commercial for ambition. Team spirit doesn't keep a furnace from exploding at 3 a.m., I replied. My voice was calm, as always, but inside I felt that dull, steady anger that comes when someone's gambling with things you built with your own hands. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ben Collins. I'm 45. For 15 years, I've been the chief automation engineer at Dynamo Steel, a place where the difference between a routine shift and a catastrophe can be a single, overlooked sensor. My job is making sure our blast furnaces don't choke, that no conveyor freezes up at midnight, that the plant doesn't wake up to another act of God insurance claim. I keep a photo of my daughters in hard hats taped inside my top desk drawer. They wrote in marker, "Dad makes steel so we can build bridges." I always told myself the real bridges were the ones I built for my team, between management, the machinery, and the people in the boots. Rick had a different idea. He came in swinging, selling the board on a new campaign he called Nights on the House. No more overtime, no more hazard pay, just solidarity and flexibility. He showed up with reports promising 20% savings if we all pitched in just a few months for the good of Dynamo Steel. What he didn't say, those months were open-ended. The savings came straight from our pockets, and flexibility meant working for free. The first email from HR was almost polite. We ask all technical staff to remain available for night coverage without additional compensation for the duration of the efficiency initiative. Please confirm your agreement. No mention of the law. No box for decline. Just reply and be counted, or stay silent and hope they don't notice. That night, I replied to everyone. HR, Rick, our floor manager, even my crew. I do not consent to unpaid shifts. I will continue night coverage as defined in my contract and labor law. Within 15 minutes, my phone vibrated. Ben, you sure about this? That was Lisa, head of HR. They're trying to make an example of you. From Mike, a line supervisor. I took a deep breath and wrote back, I'm sure. We've lost enough already. The next morning, Rick called me into his office. His tone was casual, almost bored. Ben, if you're not on board, you can pack up your desk. We're moving forward either way. It wasn't a threat, just an order. My hands didn't shake when I signed the exit paperwork. HR had the letter ready. No severance, separation for cause, and a security badge drop off before noon. On the way out, I walked past Safe Pulse, my system, my name in every script, every log entry. The hum of the server racks felt different that day, like the place was holding its breath. I left my badge at the guardhouse, waved to a couple of night shift guys coming in, and drove home with my toolbox in the trunk and my daughter's drawing on the passenger seat. That evening, my phone started blowing up. Operators, mechanics, and a few supervisors sent me screenshots of new shift lists. Names shuffled, no night premiums, just expect coverage. One text stood out. Ben, who's going to reset Safe Pulse if you're not here? Another. They say automation runs itself, but we all know it's you. I spent the next hours organizing everything. I backed up every HR email about zero pay shifts, every memo from Rick about team commitment. I found a copy of the efficiency report, Rick's edits visible in the metadata. He'd changed the numbers, inflated savings, faked a few charts. I started a folder labeled Evidence. I called the union rep, Carl. Carl, they just fired me for saying no to free work. They're trying to make the crew cover nights for nothing. Carl was quiet for a moment. You did the right thing, Ben. If they try this with the rest of the crew, we'll walk. Send me what you've got. The next day, the electricians held a meeting in the parking lot. I didn't go. I didn't want to spook management. But I got texts from 3 of the old-timers. No pay, no work. We're with you. I sent my packet to 3 places. The labor inspectorate, Our insurance provider, with a note about safety systems running unsupervised. A friend at an industry journal, just in case things went public. And then I waited. The plant could run on autopilot for a while, but SafePulse, for all its code, still needed humans who knew its quirks. Night after night, I pictured those furnaces roaring, the lines running, the alarms pinging in empty rooms, and I waited for the first real test. The nights after my exit were a strange, restless blur. Even at home, I found myself waking up at odd hours, checking my phone by habit, half expecting the usual SafePulse alert, low coolant, vibration spike, relay drop on line 3. But my inbox was quiet, the usual torrent of warnings, now someone else's problem. But silence doesn't last at a steel mill. On the second night of the new regime, I got a message from Tara, a third shift operator I'd trained myself. SafePulse is flashing yellow, and nobody can clear it. Night lead says wait for daylight. Is that safe? I wanted to answer. Instead, I typed and erased, remembering what the union had said. Hold the line, let the problem be seen. Meanwhile, Carl updated me. They tried to schedule 2 electricians for free. Both refused. HR sent out new forms with teamwork in bold letters and no mention of pay. I added every new email, every screenshot, every refusal to my evidence folder. On the third night, things broke wide open. Around 2:30 a.m., the temperature in blast furnace 2 spiked, just as the log said it might, if cooling was even slightly off. SafePulse triggered an automatic shutdown, dumping tons of semi-molten metal into the emergency sluice. The relief valves hissed and alarms blared through the halls. Nobody on night shift had the override codes. Nobody wanted to take responsibility for restarting the line. A video surfaced. One of the operators, panic in his eyes, sprinting with an extinguisher as steam and smoke poured out the side doors. Within hours, the footage hit a local news blog. Steel plant night shift meltdown, automation failure, or human error. By sunrise, I had a dozen texts from old friends, some joking, some furious. Guess who's getting called in for an emergency consult? Rick's blaming lazy engineers. The whole floor saw it on the cameras. They finally realized SafePulse doesn't fix itself. The insurance company responded immediately. They called the plant's legal team. Provide proof of qualified night coverage, or your policy is suspended. Our biggest client, watching the news, put their next order on hold. In a single day, Dynamo Steel's share price fell more than it had in 2 years. Rick doubled down. He issued a plant-wide memo. Recent issues are the result of poor staff commitment and a lack of flexibility from certain engineers. We will overcome these challenges by doubling our efforts. The crew wasn't having it. Carl sent me a picture of the electrician's break room. My old photo of the girls in hard hats taped next to a list. No overtime, no night shift, no pay, no work. We stand with Ben. The union voted to walk out if one more unpaid shift was scheduled. Meanwhile, the labor inspectorate requested every flex shift email and every payroll record for the last 6 months. The insurance audit flagged dozens of zero-pay nights, clear violation of policy. And the industry journalists started making calls, digging for quotes. As the dust settled, the board called an emergency session. CFO came under scrutiny for approving Rick's doctored savings reports. HR tried to walk back their teamwork language. It was chaos. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, wondering if anyone would ask me back, or if the whole plant would burn down before they admitted what went wrong. But the truth was out, and the story was just getting started. The aftermath was like nothing Dynamo Steel had seen in years. The story broke big, first in trade news, then local TV, then a national business segment, night shift catastrophe, steel giants gamble backfires. Reporters showed the video of the operator running for an extinguisher on repeat. Anonymous quotes from inside the plant painted a picture of chaos. We told them you can't run this place on empty promises. By the time the board convened in person, The fallout was everywhere. The insurance company formally suspended coverage for night operations. The biggest client issued a public statement pausing all new contracts, citing safety and reliability concerns. Stocks kept sliding. Inside the plant, people were angry and scared. More than a few came by my house after their shifts asking, "Is it true they can just make us work for free?" I told them what I'd always believed. You built this place. You have a right to stand up for it. Rick, desperate to save himself, called a meeting for all remaining tech staff. He blamed a few bad actors, said the crisis was overblown by the media, and doubled down on his efficiency plan. When one of the shift leads, Ed, an old friend, asked why HR had doctored pay records, Rick snapped, "If you don't like how we do things, there's the door." That was it for Ed. He left on the spot, keys on the table, boots still muddy from the floor. Others followed. HR scrambled to cover empty shifts with temps, but nobody who knew the system wanted in. Meanwhile, Carl and the union pressed their advantage. With my evidence, the inspectorate quickly confirmed dozens of labor law violations: forced unpaid labor, unsafe working conditions, payroll falsification. They issued a stop order on night production until full compliance could be demonstrated. The CFO tried to distance himself from Rick, but the emails told the story. Bonus schemes tied directly to labor cost reduction, falsified savings charts, instructions to make the numbers work. He was suspended pending investigation. All week, Rick's emails got more desperate. "Ben, let's talk. I need your expertise. You could be a hero. Come back and help us reset. Don't let the plant go down over this." I didn't answer. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about everyone who'd ever worked a night for nothing. Everyone who'd been told just this once. Everyone who knew what happened when you tried to automate away human beings. I met with Mrs. Ellison, the board chair, and laid it out. Bring back the old crew. Compensate every stolen hour. Double night pay. Give tech staff real authority over safety and scheduling. If you want this plant to survive, you start valuing the people who built it. She listened. She took notes. She asked questions about Safe Pulse, about what it would take to truly modernize the plant, not with savings on paper, but real working reliability. It wasn't immediate. There were tense meetings, pushback from finance, a dozen lawyers arguing over precedent, but the tide had turned. A week later, Rick was out, terminated for cause. The CFO resigned for health reasons. HR sent formal apology letters, and the union negotiated a new agreement. All unpaid hours repaid with penalty. Double pay for night coverage. New director position. Reliability engineering. Reporting directly to the board. Full budget for Safe Pulse modernization. No flexible coverage without explicit contract. Mrs. Ellison called me personally. "Ben, we want you back as Director of Reliability, full authority on all shift schedules, budget for whatever you need to make this place safe." It wasn't about pride. I thought of my daughter's picture, still taped in my old desk. I thought of the crew, of Ed, of everyone who stuck together. "I'll come back," I said, "but only if every promise is in writing, and I want to put that sign on my door. Saving on people is expensive. Saving with people pays off." She laughed. "That's exactly what this company needs." I returned to Dynamo Steel not as a technician, but as Director of Reliability, something I never aimed for, but something the plant desperately needed. My first day back was a mix of awkward handshakes, relief, and a bit of tension. Old faces, some grateful, some skeptical, watched as I put up a fresh copy of my daughter's drawing in my new office. Under it, I pinned the sign I'd promised Mrs. Ellison. Saving on people is expensive. Saving with people pays off. I spent that first week meeting with every team, night shift, electricians, control room staff, and the mechanics who had covered for so many broken promises. We sat around battered tables in the lunchroom, passing around coffee and donuts, talking openly for the first time in years. Tara was there, her eyes tired but hopeful. "Is it really over?" she asked. I nodded. As long as we keep holding the line, no more free nights, no more shortcuts. If a manager tries to push, you tell me. Ed came by, boots still muddy. Don't expect me to trust HR overnight, he grumbled. But when he saw the doubled pay on his first post-crisis check, he let himself smile. We got to work. First order of business, rebuild Safe Pulse. Not just as a tool, but as a living system that served people, not just numbers. I met with Mike, Tara, and even Zach, the new kid everyone liked. We drew up a wish list, more sensors, automatic log reports, remote reset, but always with a human fail-safe. The first upgraded night shift went off without a hitch. Every call was logged, every alarm had a name attached, and the double pay came through like clockwork. Even HR started dropping by with hot coffee, maybe nervous, maybe hopeful, but at least showing their faces. As weeks went by, the change became contagious. Maintenance teams suggested new training. Operators started peer-to-peer safety reviews. When a vendor tried to cut corners on a relay install, the whole crew refused the job until the right parts arrive. Word got around. Dynamo Steel doesn't do favors. It does contracts. One Friday, the team threw a small party in the break room. Lisa from HR handed me an envelope. Inside was a card signed by the crew. Thanks for fighting for us, Ben. Here's to never working for nothing again. Ed, always the cynic, held up his mug. Don't go getting soft on us, boss, but I'll admit, I like seeing management sweat for a change. And they did. Every quarter, I gave the board a report, not just on uptime, but on morale, accident rates, hours worked, and pay earned. Mrs. Ellison called me after each one. Ben, I wish we'd done this years ago. I'd answer, you can't build a bridge by saving on the steel. My favorite moment came late one night when Tara brought her own daughter to tour the control room. She pointed at my old photo on the wall and said, "That's Ben's girls. They were the reason he kept showing up, even when it was rough." Her daughter nodded. "My mom says you helped fix everything." I just smiled. I didn't fix it alone. Everyone here had to believe they deserve better. Safe Pulse kept humming, smarter and safer than ever. We built new documentation, ran regular drills, and made sure nobody's hard work went unnoticed or unpaid. The new routine stuck. Night work by contract, never by favor. Problems reported, not hidden. Everyone part of the solution. By the time the next winter rolled around, Dynamo Steel was not just surviving, but thriving. Lost orders came back. Our biggest client extended their contract and sent a letter. Reliability isn't just about machines. It's about people who care enough to do the job right. The plant was still noisy, hot, sometimes unforgiving, but now it was honest. When I left at sunrise, my boots dusty and my head tired, I knew the fires would stay lit, not just by machines, but by people who'd finally won what they had earned. I kept Rick's old emails in a folder tucked away in my drawer, not out of spite, just as a reminder. Because the hardest lessons, the ones paid for with lost sleep and broken trust, should never be forgotten. And every morning, I'd look at that drawing from my girls and the sign on the door and remember, saving on people is expensive. Saving with people pays off.